Amazing turnaround, homeless girl asks a millionaire for leftovers and discovers the unexpected. The golden rays of the setting sun lit up the fancy restaurant's windows as Lucy stood at the edge of the bustling street, her stomach growling, a hollow pit that echoed her relentless hunger. The sounds of laughter, clinking glasses, and sympathetic chatter surged like waves around her, isolating her further within the whirlpool of wealth and comfort. She took a deep breath, dusting off her battered sneakers, knowing the vast chasm separating her world from theirs. This evening, desperation fused with determination. "Excuse me, sir," she approached the table of an impeccably dressed man, his fork poised above a gourmet dish. The nervous tremor in her voice almost betrayed her. Would he turn away in disgust or sneer at her rags? Instead, his dark eyes flickered with curiosity. "Do you have any leftovers to spare?" As his gaze met hers, something sparked a moment of connection that went beyond hunger. "This is not just about food, is it?" he asked, surprise brushing his tone, as if sensing the layers of her urgency and weariness. Over the next few moments, as they exchanged hesitant stories, his privileged life as a millionaire and her struggles scrapping for meals on the streets, Lucy felt her heart race with claustrophobic anticipation. She imagined herself in his polished shoes, sucking in the aroma of unanswered dreams instead of fading hope. With each passing minute, uncertainty bloomed in her chest. Clarity intertwined with doubt, wrenching her mind as she realized Michael Sterling wasn't merely a meal ticket but a fragment of her shattered ambitions. His story resonated, echoing her own rise from nothing to countless aspirations hovering just out of reach. Was this connection genuine, or was it merely a fleeting form of charity? She felt torn between admiration and skepticism, a chorus of conflicting emotions waging war within her. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. The more they spoke, the deeper their connection grew, but with each shared laugh, shadows of Michael's past began to cloud Lucy's heart. She discovered whispers of how his wealth was built upon decisions that skirted the brim of betrayal. Anguish coiled tighter within her, as the admiration she formulated began to crumble. What was she to do with this newfound knowledge? Could she separate the gains he had achieved from the moral stepping stones that had cost others dearly? With every encounter, dread festered alongside her hope. As Lucy prepared herself for the confrontation she knew was looming, her thoughts spiraled into chaotic overlapping snippets. Could she confront Michael with the truth? Would he see her as nothing more than a nosy girl looking to shred his reputation? The warmth of their connection felt like a flickering flame just before it extinguished in the cold air of reality. She approached him, heart thudding violently against her ribcage, autonomously aware that her future and his status hinged on the truth she struggled to articulate. Fear clawed at her resolve. Would this moment be a final undoing? Did she have the courage to reveal the complex boy behind the millionaire? As Lucy stepped forward, tension thickened, bright city lights blurring into insignificance, holding the weight of her choices, whispering uncertainties into the night. "Michael," Lucy began, her voice barely a thread above the nearby chatter. She couldn't avoid it any longer. The air crackled between them, layered with unspoken truths that left her trembling. "I need to ask you something." His brow furrowed as he set his knife down, attention shifting entirely to her. She could sense the shift, the way the laughter and joy faded into a whisper behind them, turning their table into a spotlight of tension. "What's on your mind?" he asked, his curiosity eclipsing the lightheartedness of their earlier conversations. "In your story you talked about your business decisions," she hesitated, weighing each word like fragile glass. I've heard things about how you built your empire, things that they make me wonder about integrity against profit." The confession hung in the air, tainted with the weight of apprehension and accusation. Michael's expression shifted, a curtain falling over his features, concealing the warmth she had initially glimpsed. Everyone has to make choices in business, Lucy. Some decisions aren't pretty. But every player in this game knows you either adapt or you become obsolete. His response was laced with a defensive edge, and her heart sank against her chest, churning with doubt. Obsolete, she repeated, her voice thick with disdain. Is that what you call it? What's the price of success to you? People losing their livelihoods? With each syllable she spoke, she felt like she was stepping closer to a precipice. What if addressing this made him recoil, retreating to the comfort of ignorance instead of meeting her eyes with truth? I can't be responsible for the choices others make, he shot back, the frustration seeping into his tone. The tension crackled, and for a moment, silence enveloped them like a fog, only broken by the bustling restaurant's hum. The spark of their connectiveness dimmed, extinguished by the hard reality of confrontation, but Lucy couldn't back down. She had fought through cold nights, hunger, and loneliness, battling the world's indifference. This was her moment, not just to confront Michael, but to confront herself, her fears, her dreams, the white-hot ambition stoking her resolve. But you can control your choices, she stated, her voice fortifying with each word. You can choose to be better, to be more than just numbers on a spreadsheet. For the first time, she noticed vulnerability flitting across Michael's face, the slightest crack in his confidence. Do you think it's that simple? He asked as if he was unmasking in front of her, stripping back layers he had carefully built over the years. Yes, she asserted, steeling herself. Yes, I do. You don't have to let ambition blind you to humanity. Her heart raced with adrenaline. As the words tumbled out, she felt a wave of liberation too, an unexpected surge of empowerment. Michael stared down at the table, the flickering candle casting shadows on his furrowed brow. Seconds turned into an eternity, leaving Lucy hovering on the edge of their uncharted dialogue. It was as if she had opened a door, and now they were both hesitant to cross the threshold into unspoken vulnerabilities. I didn't choose this life for the luxury, he murmured finally, lifting his gaze back to meet hers. I'm driven to change the narrative of my family's legacy. His vulnerability was evident now, but she also sensed a wall, a distant longing that still held him captive. What if your legacy could be about making a real difference? She proposed, her own ambitions knitting closer to her heart. With each word, she could feel the power of her dreams encroaching upon their unsettling moment. Her hunger for success now resonated beyond need or desperation. For a brief instance, their fates intertwined. Her future hinged on his willingness to engage with moral complexities, on his ability to admit to the shadows of his legacy. And if I choose differently? He asked, the weight of their shared conversation shifting palpably. Then maybe you could join me, rather than stand apart. The finality of her statement echoed between them, filled with ambition, hope, and a plunging uncertainty, the depth of which she was only beginning to understand. But within that moment of haunting possibility, she saw a flicker of something in his eyes, a blend of intrigue and hesitation. Their gaze locked, the air crackling with potential, the flickering light of hope brightened against the looming darkness of doubt, yet, amid this tender thread of connection, Lucy knew she had uncovered a new facet of her journey. The unraveling desire to challenge the barriers between aspirations and realities was powerful, and it was only beginning. And as the city buzzed on around them, Lucy felt the weight of that decision hanging in the air, pressing for resolution as she realized she was faced with something larger than either of them, a looming choice that could change not just her life but that of countless others. Michael, she ventured, heart racing. What if I told you I wanted to change my life and yours? Would you be willing? Each pulse in her chest echoed the urgency of the uncharted road ahead, as the two stood on the brink of a revelation that might shatter everything they thought they knew. The tension hung heavy in the air as Michael leaned back, the weight of Lucy's words anchoring him to his seat. She could see him wrestling with the implications of what had just been said, his mind flickering through his past decisions like pages in a book he was suddenly uncertain of. It felt surreal, standing on the precipice of transformation together, yet they were still worlds apart. Change? He repeated, as if testing the taste of the word, rolling it over in his mind. You're talking about ideals. You want to change everything just like that? A wave of skepticism washed over his features, his brows knitting together into a furrow of doubt. He wasn't resisting out of malice, this was simply the reality. He had grown accustomed to the machinery of ambition that had shaped his life. Yes, Lucy replied, driven by a fervor that surged through her veins. I want to redefine our paths. Think of the potential. Together, we could build something meaningful. The fervent sparkle in her eye betrayed her rising passion, igniting a flicker of hope. We can incorporate values that matter, craft a business with a soul, she pushed further, her voice unwavering. But as she spoke, an unfamiliar apprehension settled inside her. What if he rejected her proposition altogether? What if he preferred the comfort of his empire, even if built on shaky moral ground? Internal fear clutched at her heart, suggesting she might be asking him to abandon everything he had ever worked for: his identity, his triumphs. Michael seemed lost in thought, the shadows dancing across his expression. He looked like a man teetering on the edge of a great canyon, petrified yet entranced by the view ahead. The silence stretched, each second drawing them deeper into an uncertain realm. What would you want from me? He finally inquired, breaking the suffocating silence. In this new venture of yours? His voice bore a trace of wariness, as if he anticipated her answer would plunge him even deeper into the winding maze of dilemma. I need someone who understands the financial landscape, someone who can lift people up instead of crushing them. You know how to navigate these waters, but you must be willing to face the truth in the mirror, she replied, seeking truth in the depths of his soul. We could build something that empowers rather than exploits. Michael's gaze held hers, challenging her to maintain focus in this delicate moment. She could almost see the gears turning inside him, years of ambition and perseverance colliding with a flicker of conscience. Each heartbeat urged her to stay solid, to remind him of possibilities he had long buried under layers of success and profit. But why trust me? I could be a liability, he murmured, voice laced with uncertainty. Because I see beyond the wall you've built. I see a potential ally who could reconcile past mistakes with future aspirations. You don't have to carry that burden alone, she implored, the urgency of her words punctuating the delicate atmosphere. And maybe, just maybe, this could lead both of us toward a legacy worth leaving. As she spoke, Lucy realized she was not just asking for his collaboration, she was demanding a profound change from within him, a confrontation with his internal conflicts that would not only reshape his business but also redefine who he was as a person. Legacy, Michael echoed, the word sinking in. Something shifted behind his eyes, and for a heartbeat, it felt as if he might agree. Yet the wall of internal conflict was thick, a fortress built on years of fear and pride. Have you ever wondered what your life would look like if you chose to step outside those walls? She challenged softly, recognizing that they were at a crossroads. What if a new legacy, one grounded in kindness and opportunity, made your family proud? The moment hung palpably in the air, electricity tingling between them as they stood toe-to-toe with their respective battles. Each felt the tremor of uncertainty, the pulse of change drumming fervently in their hearts, and with that unyielding drive pushing her forward, Lucy made a decision. I want to work together, Michael. Are you willing to step outside the world you've created? Will you risk it all to venture into the unknown? Just then, Michael's phone vibrated on the table, shattering the intensity of the moment. The weight of his choices still loomed large, but as he glanced down at the screen, a spark of realization ignited within him. The clock was ticking. Lucy felt it, the urgency of change, their intertwined futures fermenting on the edge of revelation. Would he latch onto this lifeline she had thrown, or would he retreat into the shadows of doubt once more? What's the first step? He asked cautiously, eyes narrowing with intrigue. His question held the promise of newfound possibilities, a glimmer of movement that widened the horizon of what could be. As she grasped that pivotal moment, a part of her was terrified. The leap ahead could break or elevate everything they had known. But this was the start. Lucy felt that revolution stir in her soul, and as she locked eyes with him, she knew they were on the brink of something extraordinary. Tomorrow, she breathed. We take the first step together. As she spoke, a deeper resolve settled within her, a determination bolstered by resilience and ignited by ambition. But uncertainty crackled between them, reminding her of the fragility of their alliance. What lay ahead was solutions, revelations, and trials they could never imagine. And as the city continued its rhythm around them, Lucy could only hope that together, they would rewrite their story, one calculated risk at a time. Morning light streamed into Michael's office, illuminating the heavy oak desk that had been his fortress for so long. He could hardly focus on the spreadsheet sprawled before him. Instead, thoughts of last night's conversation with Lucy swirled in his mind like eddies in a stream. The weight of her words lingered, striking echoes of possibility against the walls of his carefully curated existence. Are you willing to step outside the world you've created? Her challenge reverberated in his ears like a clarion call. He hadn't considered the fortress of success he had built as a possible prison. Could he truly dismantle his empire built on ambition and fear? The prospect, chilling yet strangely invigorating, began to crack the surface of his skepticism. He clenched his fists, the warm coffee mug in hand grounding him in the moment. He had always prided himself on being a decisive leader, a person who calculated every risk, but now, he faced an intangible foe: his own convictions. As he scrolled through his emails, they felt meaningless in light of the transformative journey Lucy had proposed. What if, instead of scaling the heights of ambition that towered above him, he forged connections that strengthened the foundation of what he stood for? Was it even possible to shift from a mentality of dominance to one of empowerment? His thoughts tumbled over each other until he felt a distinct swell of courage rising within him. Michael took a measured breath. He had always feared being vulnerable, but what if vulnerability was the key to authentic strength? He recalled Lucy's assertion that he didn't have to carry the burden alone. Perhaps it was time to explore this new paradigm, rife with challenges but also rich with unseen rewards. Glancing at the clock, he realized it was nearing lunchtime. A flicker of spontaneity urged him to act differently today. Instead of attending yet another stifling business lunch, he tapped a few buttons on his phone. He could feel his heart race. Let us meet at that new cafe, the one with the community focus. As he stepped out into the vibrant street, the world felt different. There was a pulsating energy surrounding him, the kind he remembered from his younger days, full of idealism before the grind of corporate life dulled it. Each step was infused with newfound purpose. Perhaps the foundations he had built could support something greater than individual gain. When Lucy arrived, she appeared radiant. There was a spark about her that invigorated the atmosphere. They seated themselves at an outdoor table, the clatter of plates and chatter of fellow patrons infusing the scene with life. For a moment, just as the sun broke free from a passing cloud, he allowed optimism to wash over him. "I'm listening, Lucy," he said, determination weaving through his voice. "Where do we start?" Her smile widened, and as she began outlining her vision, excitement crackled. But amid her words, doubts subtly tugged at him. Could he truly contribute to this vision? Could he transform his understanding of business into something ethical? Each question felt like a thread loosening from the very fabric of his identity. The conversation flowed effortlessly, yet as she spoke of ethics and sustainability, Michael couldn't help but observe how divergent her values were from the ruthless efficiency he had so long embraced. He felt like a swimmer in uncharted waters, thrashing against the waves of his doubts while striving to embrace the clarity she offered. However, as lunch progressed, a shadow loomed, a text notification from a key stakeholder at his company, demanding urgent attention. It was a critical moment. He faced an immediate dilemma: succumb to the urgency of the familiar world that had defined him for years, or challenge himself to put those constructs to the side for something originally inspired. There was nothing about legacy or empowerment in that text. It was about profit margins and shareholder expectations, the very things he was trying to move beyond. With a heavy sigh, he glanced back at Lucy, who was caught up in her vision. As she spoke passionately about revitalizing communities, Michael felt a pang of pride mixed with shame. How had he become so estranged from the fundamental human heart of business? In that moment of clarity, he realized he stood at a crossroads. The choices before him were stark: embrace the comfort of reliance on profits and efficiency or leap into the uncertainty of rediscovery alongside Lucy. Michael raised an eyebrow, the question forming in the back of his mind. What if we failed? He finally asked, his voice barely a whisper, yet it felt monumental. Then we learn, she replied, unwavering. But what if we succeed? What if we build a legacy that lifts others? For the first time, Michael felt a weight lift, her optimism danced freely in the space between them. But the shadows still lurked at the edges of his thoughts. As he pressed for answers, intentions hidden within him began to uncoil. Was he truly ready to build a new path? Or would he retreat back to the familiar arms of his past decisions in the face of failure? The tension crackled between them, the realization that embracing this journey could redefine not just his business, but who he was as a person. Michael took a deep breath, uncertainty swirling, but beneath it, the stirrings of determination began to crystallize. What had he buried beneath layers of success? And what would he uncover if he dared to meet the unknown head-on? With his heart pounding, he prepared to make a decision that would change everything. Would he choose the comfort of the familiar, or take the bold step toward transformation? As Michael sat across from Lucy, the gravity of his situation thickened in the air. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown to his decision. The stakes were high, not just for the future of his company but for his own identity. He recognized the urgency of the message on his phone, yet he found it increasingly difficult to focus on anything but the vibrant discussion at hand. Michael, Lucy said, breaking through his reverie. Picture a business model that prioritizes community well-being over profits. Imagine how we could innovate in ways that align with our values. Her enthusiasm fueled a growing fire within him that had long been dormant. Could it really work? He mused, his fingers drumming rhythmically against the table. The implications are immense. My stakeholders won't easily embrace a shift that challenges our traditional metrics. Metrics can evolve, Lucy replied, an unwavering conviction in her voice. You have the power to lead that change. We need to frame it as an opportunity, not just for us, but for everyone involved. Her words resonated deep within him, a clarion call to courage. Memories of late nights spent crunching numbers flashed across his mind, a stark contrast to the intimacy of this discussion. He registered how, for so long, his life had revolved around financial outcomes and quarterly growth. Now, he was grappling with a deeper realization. Could he envision a legacy defined not by wealth but by impact? Glancing around the cafe, he noticed groups of people animatedly engaging with one another, sharing stories and laughter, a stark reminder that life thrived in authentic connections. Surrounded by such warmth, he felt the chill of his corporate struggles shrink. Could he create something that didn't just reside in the realm of spreadsheets and margins? I can't just abandon my team, he countered, though each word felt heavier than the last. They depend on me to steer this ship. Are you steering them toward fulfillment or just survival? Lucy's question cut deep, like a scalpel slicing through his complacency. Michael shifted uncomfortably in his seat, feeling exposed. It was true he had prioritized business continuity over inspiring those who worked alongside him. The mounting pressure revealed a sense of urgency in his awakening. Did he want to awaken complacency in his team, or ignite a shared purpose? He had devoted so much time to material success, but now he confronted the truth: financial gains had never filled the void of deep personal connections. As he engaged in further dialogue with Lucy, his mind raced through strategies on how he could pivot his company toward ethical practices without losing his current foundation. The idea began to shape itself, a fresh blueprint that felt challenging, yet exhilarating. He envisioned a new business ethos, one that could blend profitability with community value. But lurking beneath this optimism was a primal fear: what if the risk failed? The thought gnawed at him, creeping in like fog. His thoughts spiraled into a potential catastrophe. Could he bear the weight of failure? Would he lose everything, a life he had meticulously constructed? Just then, Lucy's words snapped him back to reality. "You know," she said lightly, "everything you're imagining is about perspective. It's time to replace the fear of risk with the allure of possibility." Intrigued and inspired, Michael leaned in closer. The practicality of her vision began to crystallize in his mind. He recognized that risk was inescapable, whether he chose to stay stagnant or to leap into the unknown. With renewed determination, he quietly made a decision: he would act, but do so on his terms. The next pivotal move would be not just to risk his career but to transform his very essence. "Let's draft a plan. I want to understand how we can execute this vision together," he declared, a tidal shift occurring within him. Lucy's eyes sparkled with excitement, and a smile broke across her face. "This is just the beginning, Michael. Let's change the narrative." As they began sketching ideas on a napkin, a newfound sense of clarity enveloped him. Each stroke of the pen felt like shedding a layer of fear. He was crafting something larger than himself, an opportunity for growth that transcended traditional business frameworks. Yet as they brainstormed fervently, another insistent notification from his phone blinked persistently. While the realities of the corporate world begged for attention, his heart echoed louder with a resounding affirmation: committing to a fresh path meant risking the old one. The juxtaposition of his emerging resolve against the familiar demands of his position left him with a gnawing question: could he sever ties with a past that had defined him, even as it began to feel suffocating? Michael took a deep breath, determination riding the edge of a precipice marked by potential. Change was not just an endeavor, it was a necessity. His next choice would not only set the course for his company but would also redefine him completely. With a steady hand, he punched out a response to the demanding text message, signaling he'd be unavailable for the next couple of hours. But this choice crystallized something deeper within him. The time had come to embrace a new identity and face the inevitable transformations ahead. What awaited him in this journey was uncertain, but one thing was clear: Michael was ready to confront those unknowns head-on. As Lucy shared her ideas with ardor, Michael felt an awakening ripple through him. There was no pause in the momentum. He was now a man equally poised to embrace a new adventure. Yet, just as he tasted the power of this freedom, an unexpected thought loomed in his mind: how would he confront those who built the walls he was now determined to tear down? The next morning brought with it a lingering sense of anticipation that coiled deep in Michael's stomach like a tightly wound spring. He awoke early, his mind abuzz with vivid images of the strategies he had discussed the night before. Each idea felt vibrant, a bright thread in a tapestry he was desperate to weave together. Yet, the looming uncertainty around his decision to pivot his company's mission started to transform into something else: a thirst for clarity. That he stared at the walls of his home office, decorated with accolades and framed financial reports. Each familiar sight had been a testament to success in the traditional sense, but now felt like relics of an outdated philosophy. What legacy did he want to leave? Those were merely walls. He wanted to build a vision that could shatter boundaries instead of reinforcing them. As he prepared for the day, Michael felt a surge of motivation that propelled him toward the office. This wasn't just another day in the corporate grind, it was the dawn of a new era for his company. He was committing himself to a journey that would require vulnerability and tenacity, a recalibration of purpose. During the commute, he reflected on the risks he faced. Stakeholders would likely be skeptical, perhaps even hostile, to a radical shift in direction. In their eyes, he risked everything on a gamble that had no guarantees. But the thought was thrilling, and as the city blurred past him, he felt the pulse of the concrete jungle tapping into his resolve. When he arrived, he took a moment outside the building to collect himself. The facade, once inviting but now imposing, was more than just bricks and glass. It was a symbol of everything he was ready to dismantle. The culture inside had been one of relentless ambition without compassion, a relentless pursuit of profit overshadowing the human spirit. As he strode through the lobby, his mind turned to his team. The first step would be to gather them. He needed their input, their voices in this transition. He planned to meet with the key players, individuals who understood the drive for profit but were also capable of growth. Yet, he couldn't escape the creeping dread of how they would receive his vision. What if they turned away from this new direction? What if they believed he was throwing it all away for an idealistic whim? That afternoon, he called an all-hands meeting. As he paced in front of the assembled team, he caught sight of their curious yet skeptical faces. He cleared his throat, feeling the weight of expectation pressing down on him. "I want to talk about a fundamental shift in our business. It's time we redefine success." He launched into his vision, his words flowing freely as he spoke of community impact, sustainable practices, and the long-term rewards of aligning with ethics over profit margins. The room fluctuated between intrigued nods and furrowed brows. He could see the flicker of debate in their eyes, a mix of hope and fear, just as he had felt the night before. "Are we abandoning our current model?" One of his project managers interjected, her voice tinged with concern. "Not at all," Michael replied. "We're evolving it. We can maintain profitability without sacrificing our integrity." He watched her frown deepen. It was clear that a rift existed between the established norm and the path he was proposing, which was now manifesting as a palpable tension in the room. After the meeting, he could feel the weight of judgment pressing in. Some colleagues approached him after, unsure of how to navigate the realm he was attempting to pioneer. The anxiety of their resistance gnawed at him as he returned home that evening. Had he been too bold? The question echoed relentlessly in his mind. Yet, intermingled with the doubt was a flicker of determination. He had taken the first step, but the journey ahead was going to demand far more confrontation, persuasion, perhaps even disillusionment amongst his ranks. In that moment, Michael realized he had embarked on a venture larger than just a business initiative. He was redefining his identity and values. And while skepticism lurked at the edges of his goals, so too did the promise of a more authentic self awaiting discovery. As he settled into his chair, staring again at the once inspiring accolades adorning the wall, he whispered aloud, "The moment of truth is coming." A familiar notification on his phone startled him, pulling his attention away from his thoughts. It was a message from Lucy, hinting at a deeper strategy they needed to consider. What would Lucy reveal next, and how would it further complicate or enhance his mission towards transformation? Michael barely slept that night, his mind racing with the implications of his meeting and the expected reactions from his team. The prospect of a transformative business direction felt both exhilarating and terrifying, like standing on the edge of a precipice. But what he hadn't anticipated was the weight of responsibility that pressed down on him now. Would they trust him? Would they embrace this shift, or would it mark the beginning of a fracture in their relationships? When morning arrived, he found himself scouring through the message from Lucy, highlighting their original business strategies that had previously driven success. Underneath, a note of caution lingered. Success had not always aligned with what was right. What if Lucy saw this as a moment to exploit his insecurities? He pulled up her message once more, careful to dissect its tone. Her suggestion for a meeting wasn't merely professional, it whispered of a need to address their strategy collaboratively. She had always been a pragmatist, yet now he sensed layers of concern that spoke louder than her straightforward words. As he drove to the office, Michael crafted a mental checklist of what to communicate during their meeting. Transparency was essential, and he needed to remain steadfast in his vision. Yet, the gnawing doubt about how Lucy would perceive his new direction twisted in his stomach. Did he truly believe in this shift, or was he merely swayed by his own ideals with no anchoring reflection? When he arrived, Lucy greeted him with excitement laced with a hint of hesitation. Her eyes darted to the door as if a flood of skepticism was waiting on the other side. He gestured for her to take a seat, and as they settled in, her calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the storm brewing inside him. "I got your message late last night. I'm intrigued, but also cautious. What's driving this shift? Is this what we truly want?" Michael hesitated. Her question echoed the doubts in his mind. He took a deep breath. "I believe we need more than just profit. We need purpose that aligns with our values. I want a company focused on creating sustainable change rather than simply chasing numbers." His voice caught slightly, a mix of the passionate entrepreneur he sought to be and the scared man beneath. Lucy leaned back. And what's the plan, exactly? To get everyone on board, you'll require more than just a vision statement. You need their buy-in, Michael, but they see change as a risk. Then I'll have to show them the long-term benefits. He noticed how his words stuttered with uncertainty. At the meeting yesterday, I sensed both hope and doubt. If I can connect our goals to their personal aspirations, maybe they will see this journey as ours together. We need to inspire, not just mandate. Lucy regarded him closely, her brow furrowing. You're pivoting not just the company but yourself. And that's a risky business. What if they see you as someone chasing an ideal rather than a leader? The metaphorical knife of her scrutiny cut deeper than Michael anticipated, unveiling a chasm of vulnerability he had buried. The fear of being seen as naive was no longer a fleeting ghost lingering at the edges, it was a living presence pressing its weight behind each breath. Maybe you're right, he admitted quietly. It's a valid concern, one I've wrestled with myself. But I can't turn back now. This is more than a business for me. It's about finding integrity in what I do. Seeing her visibly relax, Michael took a leap. But if we fail, it doesn't only stop with me. It touches everyone involved, so we need to lay a solid foundation. Can you help with that? What brought this on, Michael? Lucy's very tone implied a combination of genuine curiosity and cautious suspicion. There's more to this than just business goals, isn't there? He paused, feeling the familiar weight of introspection rear its head again. I want to leave a legacy that we can all be proud of. Money without purpose seems empty to me now. Their eyes met, and in that moment, clarity flickered. The conversation wasn't just about business strategies, it was about growth. He was confronting fundamental values, the essence of leadership itself. As Lucy pondered his words, Michael felt a thin thread of hope strung together within him, a new resolve igniting in his core. Perhaps this confrontation, this inquiry into his motivations, was exactly what he needed to pivot confidently into uncharted territory. But then, just as their conversation gained momentum, Lucy's phone buzzed, an urgent message flashing across the screen. She quickly glanced at it and her expression shifted, conveying a sense of urgency mixed with dread. What is it? He asked, the tension sparking anew. We have to address an issue that might derail everything you're trying to accomplish, she said, eyes wide. Little did he know that the looming threat would demand a decisive stand, a crossroads that would either anchor his vision or rip it apart completely. What did Lucy know that could potentially shake the foundation of his newfound ambition? Michael's pulse quickened as Lucy's words echoed ominously in the air. He sensed a tidal wave of uncertainty crashing on the shore of his ambitions. What could be dire enough to threaten the fragile vision he had orchestrated? Lucy, tell me what's happening, he urged, trying to maintain a tone of calm authority. Internally, he felt the walls he had just begun to build start to tremble. She held up the phone, as if the screen itself bore the weight of the information. There's been a financial discrepancy, one that appears to involve some misallocation of funds. Someone on your team may be funneling resources into personal projects instead of the initiatives we're discussing. And if word gets out, his heart raced. What do you mean word gets out? This could destroy everything, Lucy. Yes, which is why we need to handle it discreetly and swiftly. If it's someone close to you, this could be a serious breach of trust. You'll need to approach it with care. The implications hit him like a cold slap. Trust didn't merely slip into disrepair, it could shatter into pieces. Who on his team could possibly be undermining the very foundation he was trying to build? He had thought he had surrounded himself with a group committed to shared values. The realization that a hidden threat existed sent a shiver down his spine. Do we know who it is? He asked, trying to keep his tone steady. Not yet. I have a few suspicions based on financial reports, but I need to investigate further before jumping to conclusions. If I'm wrong, you'll only create confusion and mistrust, he finished for her, grimly accepting the tangled web they now faced. Michael nodded, feeling an urgency meld with a determinative resolve. This was no longer about crafting a high-minded vision, this was about survival, his and the company's. The stakes had risen dramatically. He had to face this challenge head-on, but the idea of confronting a potential betrayer set his mind spinning. "What's your plan?" Lucy asked, breaking through his turbulent thoughts. "I'll start with a meeting. I want to gather the team and address this directly. Transparency needs to be our weapon. Let them know the gravity of the situation without causing panic." Lucy raised an eyebrow, skepticism evident in her expression. That could backfire. People might become defensive, or worse, rally around whoever's responsible. The concern in her voice struck a chord. Could he indeed be inviting a defensive backlash? Michael had always prided himself on open communication, but in this instance, urgency and fear muddled the waters of trust he wanted to maintain. As those thoughts echoed throughout his mind, he realized he needed more than just an action plan, he needed a precise navigation of emotions. It felt crucial to understand the people he led rather than merely managing them. But how could he inspire loyalty and collaboration when potential betrayal lingered in the air? "Maybe Lucy, we need to re-establish a sense of unity," he contemplated, realizing that his previous ambition of transformation had overlooked a critical element, that of reinforcing authentic connections among teammates. What if we frame this as an opportunity to innovate our approach to accountability? We need to cultivate a culture of open dialogue, strengthening bonds through shared purpose. He could feel the firm resolve settling like armor around him. This wouldn't be merely an act of leadership, it would signal to himself and his team that even in moments of crisis, there was room for growth, for greater integrity. "Let us gather the team in an hour. We'll discuss not just this situation, but also how we can come together to safeguard what we're trying to achieve together," he decided, feeling a weight lift slightly as he articulated his intentions. Michael knew this was merely the first step on a long journey. The air crackled with tension and possibility as he prepared himself for what lay ahead. He sensed this confrontation would not solely be about accountability, it would be a litmus test for his own values, a moment where he would either fortify his leadership or falter under pressure. As he stepped into the conference room, he noticed that holding his team to high standards was easier when he could clarify his expectations. But when uncertainty collided with vulnerability, what would rise to the surface, integrity or desperation? The moment loomed just beyond reach, ready to unravel secrets and expose truths that could either shatter his vision or forge an unbreakable bond among his team. Would he emerge stronger, or would this challenge highlight his greatest fears? His heart pounded, knowing the next hour could change everything. Michael's heart raced as he faced the team, a mixture of resolve and vulnerability coursing through him. He took a deep breath, pushing aside the thought of potential betrayal while trying to articulate the weight of the situation without igniting panic. The room fell silent as his employees settled into their chairs, their faces reflecting a range of emotions: curiosity, unease, and anticipation. He began, "Thank you all for coming on such short notice. I want to talk about something serious that's come to my attention, something that could affect all of us." His voice steadied, but he could feel the anxious energy radiating from the group. "Just yesterday, we uncovered some discrepancies in our financial reports. I value transparency above all else, and I felt it was crucial to address this with you directly." The way he articulated discrepancies seemed to hang in the air like an unwelcome guest, heavy and foreboding. He noticed the furrowed brows and exchanged glances amongst his team. The tension tightened the atmosphere, wrapping around him like a vice. Did he feel sick because he was scared for the company, or was it fear of revealing any hidden truths in front of them? "While we don't know the full details yet, this could potentially involve someone on our team misusing funds. I understand that this might raise feelings of anxiety or defensiveness, but I want us to turn this situation into an opportunity." The room remained still as if frozen. Anticipating pushback, Michael pushed himself to maintain eye contact, searching for encouragement in their expressions. "We have to come together to uphold our values, reaffirm our commitments to each other, and safeguard the integrity of our purpose." A murmur broke out, uncertainty clouding the air. Michael's mind raced. Was his honesty the right approach? Could he ignite collaboration by exposing the precarious reality they faced? "Michael, are you saying we should just open the books and see who's guilty?" One of his more assertive team members, Tara, challenged, her arms crossed defiantly. "No, that's not what I'm saying." He felt his heart rate spike. "I'm saying we need to innovate our practices surrounding accountability. This is about establishing trust not just in each other but in the project we all believe in." Leaning increasingly into his role as leader, Michael began to share ideas, strategies for self-checks, shared weekly updates, anonymous feedback systems. As he rolled through each thought, he felt a surge of empowerment, fueled by his desire to fortify their communal bonds amidst uncertainty. Sooner than he anticipated, hands began to raise, eager to explore the path forward together. The tone began to shift from defensive to collaborative. Questions about methods and improvements emerged, giving way to a dialogue that felt constructive rather than accusatory. Michael watched as his team's collective anxiety started to transform into creativity and possibility. People were beginning to invest themselves in the process rather than retreating into fear. The gravity of the situation didn't vanish, but a glimmer of unity started to illuminate the room. Yet something lingered in the back of Michael's mind, an insistent doubt that perhaps this shift was merely a facade. The deeper issues remained unresolved, lurking just beneath the surface. He ended the meeting with a renewed sense of purpose and unity, but as he left the room, an unsettling thought struck him like a bolt of lightning. What if their camaraderie was built on shaky ground? Had he merely postponed the inevitable conflict, clouding their judgment with a temporary sense of solidarity? Michael couldn't shake the feeling that in building his vision, he may have inadvertently overlooked a core value that couldn't be fabricated: raw honesty. What awaited him next? Would he dare to investigate deeper, even if it meant uncovering painful truths? As he prepared to leave the office, his phone buzzed with a message from Lucy, one that contained cold, hard numbers, the very details that would expose the outline of the financial discrepancies. The mystery deepened. What secrets would they lead him to? The shadows of disloyalty began to loom larger, and in the silence of his office, Michael knew this was merely the beginning of a challenge that could either solidify his leadership or unravel it entirely. Michael stood before his team, the weight of 1,000 unseen pressures pressing down on him. Today's meeting had revealed truths that, while unsettling, offered the chance to forge a more cohesive unit. Yet, beneath the apparent unity lay an unsettling knowledge that a breach of trust had occurred. The air hung thick with unspoken words. The sense of solidarity had been a fragile veil, obscuring the shadows that could fracture their fragile alliance. As he sat at his desk later, he considered the potential repercussions. The financial discrepancies loomed large, the unknown culprit sat like an unease in his gut. How do you lead a team fractured by distrust, when the very foundation of ambition and now ethics was at stake? Taking a deep breath, he summoned Lucy. Her understanding of integrity and ethics was precisely what he needed to navigate this labyrinth. Their initial conversation echoed resolutely in his mind, a challenge to embrace transparency over profit. Together, they could turn adversity into growth. But first, he had to broach the subject of the discrepancies. "Lucy, I need your insights about the financial discrepancies we discussed earlier," he said when she arrived. "I believe this is more than an isolated situation, it's a symptom of deeper issues. How do we ensure full accountability without shattering morale?" Her expression softened as she absorbed his words. "The key is to approach this with a framework of trust and vision. We need to cultivate an environment where accountability is not punitive but collaborative." He felt a flicker of relief mixed with uncertainty. But how do we rebuild that trust when it has already been broken? Lucy settled into the chair across from him, her demeanor calm yet purposeful. "We start by sharing the facts. Transparency isn't just about numbers, it's about how we handle the fallout. Have concise discussions about accountability as part of a larger ethical framework. Make it about growth for everyone, rather than punishment for one. Michael's confidence surged. He recognized the concordance of values between himself and Lucy, and that gave him clarity. A plan began to form in his mind. First, clarify his vision for the company, recalibrating it with the team's input. Then, unpack the discrepancies together, encouraging open discussions about accountability without fear. Let us organize a workshop, he proposed, excitement igniting within him. Create a space where everyone can voice their thoughts about our direction as a company, and the role of accountability within it. Lucy nodded in approval. And encouraged them to brainstorm how to create a robust system that protects everyone's interests. It's vital to shift the focus from merely finding blame to fostering collaboration. Hours passed as they drafted an outline that would encompass a revitalizing workshop, one that capitalized on the team's collective wisdom while ensuring that the necessary changes wouldn't emerge from blame but from shared vision. As preparations unfolded, Michael found himself invigoratingly uncertain yet undeniably empowered. This was not just a workshop, it was a chance to catalyze transformation across all layers of the organization. He felt a spark of anticipation, not only about the workshop's potential but also of his own evolution. He was no longer the millionaire founder shrouded in ambition. He was pioneering a path toward ethical leadership. Now came the moment of truth. When the day of the workshop arrived, Michael stepped into the room, peering at the gathering of faces. Some were friendly, others remained guarded. Thank you all for coming today. I'm aware that the financial discrepancies we've unearthed have created uncertainty, he began, voice firm yet inviting. But I believe we're on the brink of something greater, a chance to redefine our values and objectives as a team. The conversation evolved organically. People were speaking, sharing thoughts and ideas, shaping a new vision built on ethical leadership and accountability. It felt like a renaissance unfolding in real time, illuminating the darkness that had clouded their camaraderie. For each concern voiced, there were positive solutions suggested, rekindling their shared ambition to not only succeed as a business but to do so while honoring their principles. By the end of the day, as he observed the renewed energy fizzing in the air, he could feel his heart swell with pride. He stood on the brink of personal transformation, navigating the complex landscape of leadership with authenticity, vulnerability, and courage. The feedback flowed in an emerging culture of collective responsibility, a pivot from a once opaque culture to a transparent one. The workshop had given them resolve. Trust was slowly on its way to being rebuilt. Yet, whispers of doubt persisted in the recesses of Michael's mind, seeding a thorn of anxiety as he still needed to reconcile the discrepancy and potentially identify the source of betrayal. As weeks passed, the tension diminished. New systems of accountability took root, and camaraderie flourished amongst the team. While things were becoming stable on the surface, deep within remained the unanswered question regarding the person behind the financial misallocation. Would he have the courage to confront them, and would they, when unmasked, attempt to undermine the new foundations they so eagerly laid? As he reflected on these challenges, he realized that confronting individuals who may have jeopardized their progress required him to uphold the very principles he had fought to integrate into the business. Michael poured into these moments, fueling the determination he needed to take decisive action while ensuring that he remained grounded in empathy. A silent vow settled in him: he would move forward with both strength and compassion. The time came one afternoon to meet with Lucy again. In their meeting, Michael's voice trembled with resolve. We're making strides, but we need to address those discrepancies. I can't let this linger. Lucy tilted her head thoughtfully, guiding him back to the core of their shared vision. You're ready to confront this. Searching for truth isn't just about accountability, it's about reinforcing trust. As he locked eyes with her, he felt a swell of purpose, echoing loud and clear. I'm ready, he declared, the distillation of all he had learned churning within him. This had become more than a business initiative. It was becoming part of who he was, now being shaped within him. Days later, as he faced the team member suspected of financial misconduct, Michael felt the tension tighten around him. The person sat across the table, eyes darting anxiously. In that moment, the essence of his journey resonated: the courage to confront difficult truths, the willingness to embrace vulnerability, and the deep-rooted desire to redefine what it meant to lead. Michael inhaled deeply. We need to address something important. The discrepancies raised concern not for punishment, but as an opportunity for growth and understanding. The conversation stretched ahead of him, a maze of uncertainty and potential revelation. This was but one moment on the journey, yet it held the power to reshape his future, proving that growth emerged through confrontation and that every person has the potential to redefine their path. He would prove it to himself, to his team, and ultimately to the man across the table. And as he stepped toward resolution, surrounded by purpose and connection, Michael realized he had undergone an extraordinary transformation. He had evolved from an ambitious millionaire into a leader forged in the crucible of ethics, vision, and integrity, ready to face whatever came next, hand in hand with a more resilient team. This was his legacy, one where hope, accountability, and human connection would forever reshape the narrative he had long sought to redefine. The journey was only just beginning. You need to subscribe now to our channel in order to witness the next exclusive emotional story about personal growth. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, as it truly makes a difference and helps others find these transformative tales. Comment below with your reactions, insights, and any theories you hold regarding this powerful journey. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this ending. Don't wait even one more second to show your support and connection to these inspiring narratives.